Good morning, and welcome to my cheap C5 Corvette. Today we're going to take a seat. Yes, indeed, it's time for Corvette things. Today we are fixing one of the most uncomfortable aspects of my C5, which is the seats, by swapping them out for C6 units, and hopefully cutting through the crap along the way. Now, there's a few issues with the C5 seat. If we look over here, this is basically a bench seat. It has a little bit of bolster, just a little bit, and very little lumbar support, and yeah, there's just not a lot going on here. And also the C5 seat rails have a bit of an issue. Now, I bought a couple of C5 seats from J&J Auto Wrecking. Thank you guys. And they're great. I already got this one in on the driver's side, and I was going to use the driver's side to figure out how to do it and then make the video doing the passenger side once I knew what I was doing. But the passenger side seat is manual, so that doesn't really work, and I need to redo the driver's side anyway because the internet is so full of conflicting information, incorrect information, incomplete information about how to do what should be a simple swap. And it all kind of comes down to people being scared of wiring for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why that is. Because the way that I did my driver's seat, which is what is apparently like the most common way of doing it, is I took the C6 seat off of the seat rails, put it on the C5 seat rails, and then bolted it in. In theory, you then reuse the C5 controls and everything, and it just fits. Two big problems though. First of all, the controls don't fit. Like, that's bolted in. That is everything's located where it's supposed to be. I did break the control lever, but everything's there. But that's the sort of fitment you get. That's garbage. Also, the C5 seat rail has a couple issues. One of them is known as the rocking seat, and then also there is that much sliding play in almost every C5 set of seat rails. Terrible. Useless. Throw them out. The thing is, the C6 seat rails have the exact same bolting flange. Why aren't we just bolting the C6 seat in wholesale? Well, the wiring is slightly different. Now, I don't know how it's different because GM's wiring diagrams are borderline useless, and everyone who's successfully done this refuses to actually post what they did to make it work, so I'm going to find out myself. There's a few different things that I could do. I could cut off the seat plug on the C5 seat and on the C6 seat and try to wire match the C5 one so that it powers up the C6 seat module and makes everything work. Thing is, with a benchtop power supply, I've not figured out how on earth to get the C6 seat module to actually power up. The other solution is to take the entire wiring harness out of the C5 seat, put that in the C6 seat rail, and then put the C6 controls on the C5 harness. And that by control, I just mean this here. I got kind of lucky. My car does not have memory or anything like that. And these C6 seats don't have the power bolsters or anything, so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 axes. So 12 wires, no grounds, 7 wires total then? Something like that, because you've got a switch for the rear up, down, or you've got switches for front up, front down, rear up, rear down, forward, and back. And those are all just micro switches, and that's the same between the two of them, just different wiring colors. So that's the only cutting and splicing I should have to do, and this should just work. But first, we're going to get the passenger seat in here, and then take the driver's seat back out, swap the rail back over, and try and figure out this wiring nightmare. Here we are with pretty much all the tools we're going to need. I don't even remember why I have most of these, but we've got a pick, 13mm socket, trim tool, Phillips head screwdriver, then 13 to 15 millimeter wrenches. I don't remember why I have these, but first off, we're just going to need the 15. Honestly, for this side, I think this is all we need. Because if we come in the car here, these manual seats are about as simple as it gets. Got a little push pin. Pop out the push pin. Slide forward the cover. 15 mil. Ow. Yeah. The rear is more the same, but no plastic covers here. A couple more 15s and that's ready to come out. You'll notice I have the trim off of here. That's not anything to do with the seat. The seat belt has just got kind of creased over the years and does not like to spool back into the reel very well. So half the time, passenger gets in here and they can't pull their seat belt out. Pretty common C5 issue. These are actually terrible cars. Don't buy one. Get a C6 instead. They work so much better. Congratulations, you've just made your C5 Corvette tall person compatible. I think there's less room in here than a Miata. Okay, so now I get to check out two passenger seats side by side. So the passenger seat's not near as worn out as my driver's seat was. It just doesn't hold me in. There's nothing to the sides of my torso here. And this is the only Corvette they did that with. The C6 got way better bolsters, and the C4 had insane bolsters. There's a little bit more around my thighs, but my torso's just all over the place in here. There's not a ton of lower back support. So let's check out this reupholstered C6 seat. It looks like it's got a little bit of a bolster collapsing going on. It could probably use new seat foam, which is cheap and widely available. I think 150 bucks will get you set up there. It feels so much more secure. There's so much going on the back here. The cloth inserts just really hold me a lot better. I mean, you could do that on this one as well, but just the whole design of this seat feels more modern, and it smells good because it's got fresh upholstery. And the foam feels a little stiffer, actually. And there's a lot more lower back support. Oh yeah, definitely. Did any of the engineers ever sit in this? It's not good. Something I did just notice is on these later C6 seats, they have this gas-charged pretensioner. And this does fit, like the receiver does accept the safety belt just fine, but that's pretty bulky and I'm not entirely sure it'll fit, so I'm just going to switch over the seatbelt receivers. It's a, what is this, a 21 on this seat and I think an 18 or 19 on the other. So it's just this one nut here, and then there's a locating pin, and then these will swap over, so I'm going to do that real quick. So to get this off, there's some wires that are going to need freed. Let's see, what do we got here? This crazy zip tie thing. This is definitely the right set of cutters for this. There we go. So this one is if the seatbelt, to send a signal if the seatbelt is actually hooked up or not. And this one is the airbag pretensioner thing. And let's see, that just slides out. Okay. There we go. Weight savings. And then here we have the C5 seatbelt going in with the 18mm nut from the C5. Cool. Okay, I kind of wondered about that. This little stud hits here, so that's going to have to be sawzalled off. Did these have... Yeah, I think C6s had the seatbelt mounted to the seat itself, or something to that effect, which might also be what this plug is. Doesn't matter. We're just going to tuck that plug away, and I'll go grab the sawzall, cut that stud off, and then it will be able to slide back without that happening. Oh, that is so much better. So what I would do is I would just take the whole C6 seat and throw it in and swap over the wiring harness. But I gotta swap the C6 rails back onto my C5 seat. So if you just want to swap rails over and deal with these crummy C5 rails, this is more or less what you do. To get to the rail bolts, they're on the top, so you have to actually pull the seat bottom cushion off. And to do that, there are 3 hog rings down at the bottom. In my case, they've been replaced by zip ties. And then there's like a drawstring. Let's see here. Here it is. There's like a drawstring that goes around that may be attached one of several different ways. In this case, it's just zip tied. So I'm just going to cut the zip ties to loosen that drawstring. And that lets you undo this. And now you got to take off the side controls. There's a, if you're familiar with crank windows, it's that sort of arrangement in here. And then there's a Phillips in there. And then the seat controls just pop off. Don't pull. On the C6 controls, you have to pop the movement handle off. You don't have to do that on the C5 ones. Don't do that because it'll break, most likely, like mine did. So I'm going to go spend 8 years with a pick trying to get that stupid little clip out of here, and we'll come back to this. Here's what we're dealing with the handle. So what I was doing was using my long-handed pick to sneak up in here and then pull it. And sometimes you kind of get out on one side and then got to get it out on the other side. But then, yeah, that just pulls out. It's going to go flying if I do it, but it pulls out, and then the handle comes off, and you're good to go. So now we can start to push this back. Okay, we've got our 2 easy-to-get-to bolts up here. Now on the C6 rails, there's studs sticking up with nuts on them. On the C5 rails, they're bolts pointed down. Front ones are pretty easy to get to. Back ones are way back in there, and this is the part that really sucks. I go at this with a 2-pronged attack. For the front ones, I've got a swivel head 13mm socket wrench. For the back ones, just a box head wrench. There's not enough room for the ratcheting thing. There's stuff in the way. It really sucks. A little bit at a time. I have no idea if my focus is on that or not, but it's there. So here we have both seat rails, C6 on the right, C5 on the left. The C6 one, I took the wiring harness off. It all just unplugs. We don't need any of that anymore. And you can see here some of the differences because this is a memory seat and this is not. So this has the sensors all over the place. None of that we're going to use. And this one does not. Other than that, everything here is extremely similar. Few small changes. You can see this has a way more durable design for this actuator here. This just kind of has exposed stuff, and yeah, it's a better design. That's why we're wanting to use this one. I did just think of like even another way that you could do this. Probably the simplest, best way to do this, if you don't care about that terrible seat fitment with the controls, you can use the C5 controls and the C5 wiring in the C6 rail with the C6 seat. It'll look exactly like it did when I started this, but it'll have the stronger rail that doesn't have, you know, a bunch of play in it. So now what I need to do is swap the okay, that's kind of fun. Swap those, cut this off, and then go through and move all of these connectors. All the power goes into this one connector here, and wait, that's it. That's literally the only connector. It's just power, right? Yeah. And then this is the seat control. No, that's the main connector to the car, which is fastened underneath. So yeah, for a non-power module like this, or a non-memory module, this is just a relay box. That's the only connector we really need. That, and then this one is for the to make sure the seat belt plug-in, whatnot. So sick. Oh yeah, and you can see here, upper lumbar, no. Lower lumbar? No. Telescope steering? No. No options on this rail. Well, that's fun. So yeah, I'll unplug that and then plug it in over here. And then all we have to do is figure out what pins on this correspond to what pins on, let's see, where is it? Here. We gotta match that up somehow. So I'm gonna probably unwrap this wiring harness a bit and cut it, and then I'm gonna do a whole bunch of trial and error. Alright, I think I figured it out. The little tab on these controls is forward facing. Also looks like these are broken, so I hope that this actually goes back into the seat correctly. So I've got forward, back, front up, front down, rear up, rear down. And obviously I'm going to pull all these connections apart and terminate them. This was just for testing, but to the left of the screen is the C5 side, to the right of the screen is the C6 side. We have light blue to light blue, green to dark blue, gray with black stripe to red, dark blue to green, gray to tan, these are stuck together, yellow to light green, and yellow to yellow. No, sorry, I got those last two wrong. What is that, black or dark brown to light green, and then yellow to yellow. Something to note when you're looking at the wiring diagrams is that one of these is ground switched, the other is hot switched. So this gray with black to red, this is denoted as a 12 volt wire. On the C6 diagram, this is denoted as a ground wire on the C5 diagram. It doesn't matter, they're switches, they don't care about polarity. So I'm going to go connect all these properly with crimson heat shrink, and then start attaching this to the seat pan. Oh, I need to cut this off still with the death wheel. I already got the seat belt swapped over. Okay, I'm going to give one more look at this before I wrap it up. On the right side is the C6 switch. On the left side is the C5 harness. We have light blue to light blue, yellow to yellow, dark blue to dark green, gray to tan, gray with black stripe to red with white stripe, brown to light green, dark green to dark blue. And there we have it. I'm going to get that all wrapped up and start getting the rail reattached to the seat. It is now zip tie time. Now that I've got the cover over, I put the wiring harness back in. There's a few extraneous wires here from the C6 specific stuff. I believe one of these is I think this is the heated seat. I don't know what that is. That's the built-in airbag. We're not concerned with any of that. We are concerned with these two drawstrings, which there's a few different ways you can do this. I am going to take a zip tie, and I'm going to stretch this one over to I'm going to stretch this one to here, and then this one is going to cross it and go to here, and this will let me tighten these down, put some tension on these drawstrings, and that will keep the seat cover securely in place. And then cut off my tails. And then instead of hog rings, I'm also going to use zip ties for this flap here. You can see there are some holes where the hog rings were. In my case, there are 3 holes, so I'm just going to poke zip ties through those 3 holes. This reminds me of fitting a new seat cover on my NA Miata back in the day, and these go around this here, and I think they're going to go underneath these control cables. So we're going to go like this, and then underneath these control cables. same over here. And all three of these just get tightened down. And that holds the back of the seat base on. Alrighty, now the only thing that's left is putting the side controls on and the bezel. This is pretty straightforward. There's this metal plate. Let's see, I can unplug this for now. Metal plate, gonna go over everything here. A couple of screws. If you took this off before, installation is reverse of removal. It doesn't matter a whole lot that this is ugly, because it is not going to be visible. I think at this point, this goes into place like that. The bezel has a hook here. It hooks around the front of the metal, comes back, and fits around both the seat controls and the tilt lever mechanism area, and then it's fastened with a screw. Where's that screw? And that sandwiches everything in place. Now we can reinstall our tilt lever, which only goes in one way. Make sure you put the clip back in first, and our position switch. Fantastic. Oh, it looks so much better than the C5 controls on there. Let's put this back in the car. Okay. I think that's it. Oh. Okay. Forward, back, front up, rear up and down. Yes. I'm very short. Oh man. That feels like a sports car now. So there we have it. Now we have C6 seats with C6 controls and C6 rails in my C5 Corvette, and they look pretty fantastic, and they feel even better, and I'm not sliding forward every time I hit the brake now, which is kind of dangerous, honestly, because then you just hit the brake more and it's not great. I am extremely pleased with this. I wish I had this for the 12 hours I spent driving this thing home from New Orleans. It is so much more comfortable with these seats, and I'm sure it will keep me in place a lot better when I take it autocrossing, which I actually did. Here's some footage.
You're good.
There's no comparison. These seats keep me glued in this car and able to control it way better, and I'm excited to go back and do some more performance driving in this now that I have the C6 rails that will keep me from sliding forward and backwards. Kind of a big deal. Do all the normal stuff, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see me do with this car next. I don't want to get too crazy. I just kind of want a quick street car out of this, and I think we are well on our way. Thanks for watching.